you'll be surprised if you do that for a week, you'll find yourself picking up your pencil. It was like a second language for me. It was kind of a way to let out my emotions, and that was always something that I had. For the majority, I doubt most of us struggle with it. Even with me, I've noticed, sometimes I'll be working really hard, but I'm not working smart. Recently, I've adopted this thing where I will maybe do a comic or storyboard, and I pay attention to what took me the longest. And back when, I don't know, even up to maybe a year ago, I wouldn't do this as often, or it's one of those things that you'll confront your fear and then you'll stop confronting it. It's like a battle that keeps on going. But anyway, I noticed that, there were certain things slowing me down. Like maybe I haven't done gesture drawing in a while. So I paid attention to that, and I went and I did life drawing on the side for a couple of days, and I noticed my speed was increasing. So like, don't go run a marathon with like a twisted ankle. Why would you do that? Just heal it up. Do the thing, do the homework, eat your veggies. Pay attention to what's slowing you down, and literally just do some studies of it, So yeah, that's kind of something that I really recommend doing.
That's really great. I love that mindset, because the fixed mindset is like, I think people say like, that's how I am, this is how I am, so that's never going to change. But the growth is accepting that the world is always in flux, and so are you. Yes. And there's always that capacity.
Exactly.
That's lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, like it's so true, because it's just so insane. Like literally, we are bound, and it's okay, because I think the number one step to changing is your habits. I think that's something very critical, and I want to like really stress on habits. And this is something that many people struggle with. If you grew up learning how to do everything that you need to get done, I commend you. But for the majority, I doubt most of us struggle with it. And it comes from steps, small steps. I cannot emphasize, you cannot go and do this all at once. You cannot spend 10 hours drawing every single day when for the past month or so you haven't picked up a pencil. Start slow. There's no shame in it. Think about it in the long term. Patience is literally a virtue when it comes to habits. Like, patience is something that you need to work on, and you need to kind of cultivate when it comes to learning how to become a master at something. You need to have the patience to accept that it's going to take time. So, you haven't picked up a pencil for a month. What do? Literally tomorrow, when you're stressed out, I have this thing called the 10-minute rule. And it's basically spend 10 minutes on the thing you don't want to do. Just put a timer. Like putting a timer, like the physical act of putting a timer incentivizes you to do the thing that you are dreading, because 10 minutes doesn't feel like a lot, I mean, it's really not. And if 10 minutes feels too taxing, put it on 5. If 5 minutes is too much, put it on 2. Literally just make 2 drawings. And you'll be surprised if you do that for a week, you'll find yourself picking up your pencil the next week. You'll find yourself doing it regardless. And then you can start to increase your hours and start to add things that you were scared of. There was a period where I was so anxious, and all I would focus on, like, I remember I was just focusing on studies. I wasn't even focusing on my personal work. I was just doing studies for a while. And once I felt like I found myself, doing studies as a second instinct, I started to elevate it, and I was like, okay, you know what? Today I'm going to be really scared, but I'm going to do my comics, and it's honestly like, our bodies are designed to value comfort. Our brain is very against learning new things, but it's also at the same time, it's a very adaptable muscle. Our brains will allow it to happen as long as we introduce it in increments. That's something that I really value, and I'm glad I got out of the way.
Wow. So I'm curious, what are the habits that you were talking about, what habits have you built that you're kind of seeing the results of now? And is there anything you're like since
Yeah,
quarantine?
oh yes, that's a good question. I mean, I'll talk to you like, okay, so, uh, for example, I didn't have a lot of habits when I was in Cal Arts, when I went to college. Like, I had, like, when I was in high school, I went to a really shitty school that valued only like sciences and memorizing. So I didn't like to study. I didn't like to study. I didn't have value in it. I used to think that I was dumb. That was that's not what you want to go in. And like in a sense, I had a fixed mindset on my intelligence. I always thought that that's just how I was. So when I went to school, art was always this thing that I did for fun. Art was always my freedom. I spent hours on art and it felt good. So once I went to school, that changed because your art becomes your work. And that's always a very complicated relationship for every artist, is to balance the work element with the love and the passion that you had for it. So I noticed myself struggle a lot. I struggled so much at school. I would even, like, I remember there were days where I would have an assignment done, but I didn't like how it was, so I wouldn't go to class, so I didn't have to show it in front of others. That is me running away. And it's okay. I don't blame myself because I was going through a lot at the time. So I let myself be who I was and accept that that's then and this is now, and that's now is what I have control over. So at school, I didn't have any habits, but I still did draw. I still did it from time to time. But I feel like I stunted my growth in a way by not cultivating the habits that I'm about to explain to you now. Like, I remember I wouldn't use reference a lot. I think it never got to me that every artist uses reference for every single thing, and it makes an art 10 times better. Y'all, use your reference. Don't fall into that you need to know it by through your head propaganda. It's so not true. If I didn't know how to do something, I would just focus maybe on something that I did know how to do, because of the stress of not wanting to do two things at once. No, but I did do a lot of work and I did learn a lot of things. But anyway, once I graduated, that's when I didn't have my friends in the labs with me to like motivate me to work. I had to do it all by myself. So I started to kind of just go to baby steps. And for me, sketching and, making comics, I think that was something I did almost as for myself at first. And it was like a second language for me. It was kind of a way to let out my emotions. And that was always something that I had. So to turn that into something that I can post on the regular was difficult. So in terms of habits, I would do figure drawings, 10 minutes a day, maybe once a week. I would pay attention to shows that I like and write them down so that I could study them for later. I would, what else? I mean, it's like stuff like that. There wasn't anything huge or big. It was just small incremental things that I started to do. I would make a list of things I like about my art and things I wanted to improve. And I would focus on one at a time. Like, there was a period where I would really focus on perspective. So I would take photos, in my house or apartment, or, find something off Pinterest and just draw it and paint it out. And, getting that drawing mileage, like your hand learns faster than your brain. So getting the drawing mileage makes you improve way faster than you think you can, as long as you get that mileage out, even doing studies on YouTube of motions, just putting it on 0.25 speed and just framing through things that you don't know how to animate. I learned some anatomy. I opened up some books and just like would copy them for a while, and it slowly kind of just went into my brain, and I was able to, harvest more shortcuts and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, I didn't do anything drastic, honestly. It was kind of through time, I just paid attention to those things and kept it on the side of my already main thing, which is like telling stories. I really do think there's value in, you know, whatever you do want to improve in, just keeping it in the back burner. You know, for me, it was draftsmanship and storytelling. So I would always pay attention. You know, I've been watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a shame that I haven't watched it until now. But I used to not really enjoy action films or like shows. So like it's fine. I watched at the right time and point in my life. But I just love all the scenes and all the characters, and like even just you know, one of the main characters starts out as a villain and slowly has this arc, and it's just so great. And I jotted it down in my notebook. They had a character with him that was sympathetic, you know, Uncle Ira with Zuko, and it really, like, it was such a cool arc to just how they introduced it. You know, Uncle Iro used to be more villainous, and he after his son died, he changed. So there was an incident that allowed the character growth. So stuff like that I love to analyze. Something other artists can do. Totally. It's literally just looking into your passions and just focusing on how do you go from A to B.
That is so great. That you're right, it's so easy to get like overwhelmed by all the stuff that you're not doing. So I love that you just pick one and you go with it, and over time you've been able to do it. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. It's totally the best way to do it, because you will never be satisfied with what you know. I mean, it's easy to say that because I know from years of experience, like looking back, and like I have a little to-do list. I have a little list of things I wanted in my art maybe 4 years ago, and I'm looking at it right now, and it's funny because I think I did most of the things on the list, but I'm still not satisfied. I still want more. So you kind of like have to really just enjoy the journey. I know that's so cheesy, like not the end result, but it has truth in the sense that you have to always be hungry. I read this thing that was that artists stagnate not when they fail, but when they're bored. And I thought that was so mind-blowing, because I experienced that. There was a period where I was doing comics and I was kind of bored of doing it. So I kind of just took a step back, but actually pushing through that boredom leads to innovation and leads to kind of going from E to F to G, you know. And I think just finding ways to stay interested and to stay passionate is so important, because that's how you make the journey way easier on yourself. And you have to remember that art is a discipline. Like it's something that we have to treat as a subject worth learning, but at the same time acknowledge the privilege it is to do something that is so full of love and joy at times, you know. And I think the best way to do that is just to look within yourself. I remember when I was at school and struggling to figure out my art identity and like who I was, I remember at that period of my life, even I would adopt a sort of different personality anytime I'd hang out with a different friend. So I made a list. I just opened 2 pages of my sketchbook, and I made like list after list of all the things I like, all the things I dislike, little things like, I don't like tomatoes, or I really like the movie Gone Girl, like whatever. I just put it into a list, and I just looked at it and I was like, this isn't fully who I am, but it's a good start.